That's a good cup of tea. Why have I got bubble water that's still on the go from earlier on? That's very flat now. Another cup. I've got too many cups of tea. Anyway, what are we going to look at now? Right, so we have our website set up and we have a very basic WordPress install that's on there. What we're going to look at in this module is logging into WordPress and making some changes to it. But before then, let me quickly go through some of the other control panel functions just so that you're left wondering what they are. So far we've looked at account profile, file manager, and the WordPress functions. Most of the other stuff are pretty sensible going forward. System information, resources and processes are telling you what's going on the server. The mail manager is one that you might want to look into. ICDSOFT comes with a very nice mail interface. By default you just have this one called Postmaster. Let's say that I wanted to create a new email address on here. I could create one on this page and call it nick@marketingbusinessconsultant.com, give it a password, and then whenever I go to webmail.the domain name, so rather than www.the domain name, put in webmail.the domain name, you'll have a web interface for that email account, just like using Gmail. It's pretty nice. Alternatively, you could add an account here called nick@whatever, or whatever you like, and you can set it up to be a forwarding account so that any email sent to that address would get forwarded to you with your personal account for you to answer. Very obvious when you use it. Have a play, figure it out yourself. Alternatively, here's all your IMAP and POP information if you want to configure your local client on your phone or on your desktop to read these accounts directly rather than using the webmail interface. Those are the details you put in. I'm sure you know all that stuff. It's got mailing lists. The backup and restore is pretty handy. They do a backup every single night, so you can always restore back to it at different times. So let's say, for example, what I just done had blown this website to smithereens. In my case, this website's been sitting here for a while, right, because I've done nothing. So I can either restore the files in the www folder back to where they were. Let's say I've been FTPing things up and down. Or I can restore the SQL database, which is where the information for the website is stored. Let's say that I was hacked and someone had injected all kinds of nonsense into my SQL database. I can look at the system backup and it just says, right, when do you want to restore that back to? Then I can choose a date and a time. Let's say that I knew that I was hacked yesterday. This actually happened to one of my websites a few months ago. I can just say, yep, here's the database, and please restore it back to 3 hours ago, 5 hours ago, all these different dates and times with different stories. It's a really cool backup, and that will either, you can select individual tables within your database, or you can just restore all of it. Click continue. It normally takes seconds to a minute to restore. It's pretty neat. What else can I show you on here? FTP Manager obviously is for creating FTP accounts, uploading and downloading. I tend not to use them much nowadays because WordPress pretty much does everything that I want it to. The redirect URL will allow you, while perhaps, excuse me, I should have got more sleep last night. It will allow you to redirect to another URL while you're working on this website. Trace route's a bit more techy. SSL bears looking at. Let's have a look. This is the difference between an HTTP website or an SSL website. HTTPS. You can install your own SSL certificate if you've bought one from somewhere. I hope you didn't, because you don't need to. We can use the free Let's Encrypt certificates. When we look at them, it says, would you like to install a certificate for free so that your website shows as secure? The benefit of that is it's encrypting the information between the server and your browser, and search engines, Microsoft, Bing, Yahoo, etc., like it more. I think I'm boring myself as well. I'm falling asleep. By default, you can see it's enabled. It's enabled because we did that WordPress install. So as part of that WordPress install package, it enables SSL. The rest tells you some very nice site statistics. This will show you the MySQL database that was created by the WordPress installer. It's created a random name for this thing, right? You can go poking around in there if you like, and if you want to go poking around inside your database, you would use the PHP myadmin to go poking. These are all things that if you're a beginner, you don't need to look at any of this stuff. The software is installer is for installing other packages. You can install shopping carts, all kinds of things. We're just going to use WooCommerce and keep it simple. Domain parking. This is how you would park a domain if you'd booked it somewhere else. Let's say you'd booked, myfavoritedomainname.com. You would plug that in here, create it, and it would tell you to go over to where your domain was booked, let's say with GoDaddy, for example, and update the name server on that domain. So by default, it might say nameserver.godaddy.com, and you just update it to say ns1. In my case, it's this S700 Shore server. Your order that you've placed will have your own domain names. You update that on your domain. If your domain is hosted somewhere else, it will automatically route it through to this server. If, however, you've ordered it all in the one package, you haven't got to touch any of that. You can create control panel sub-users. You can look at logs. You can do all kinds of stuff. The only thing you might want to play with is the DNS manager. If you want to change the DNS, you can do things like forwarding the email to a Gmail account or an Office 365 account. And if you want to have the email from this web server accessible that way, they'll give you instructions. I've just recently done that for another website I did for a client, teacherstoyou.org. It links into their Google Mail application, and it all works beautifully. So that's pretty much it. Last but not least is the server-side caching. I recommend turning this on. It will make your website a little bit faster, but I don't turn that on until after I've finished setting the website up. So let's set the website up.